Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Gergely Fazekas, the host of today's discussion, and I'm happy to welcome Ramon Lazkano. Thanks for being with us. Before we start our discussion, please tell us a few words about this piece we just heard. It was written in 2013, but I'm not sure the title is clear for everyone in the room.
Yes, well, yeah, it was 2013. It was a commission for the festival in Monaco, the Printemps des Arts. They commissioned a series of few pieces which had to start each concert. It was like a aperitif before the main entry. So Ibaiadar in Basque means it's the branch of a river. That's all, and it's a reference to the ramifications in this piece. To me, the idea was one of a scherzetto in B minor, B because of the scordatura, the fourth string is tuned quartet-tone lower, and it makes the overall sonority of the instrument change in a very fashionable way and very distinguishable way, in which you quite easily recognize a sway between a B chord and a G chord, which are really the very simple, very easy material of the piece, and then the piece talks about the impossibility of these chords to exist, to come to an end, and to be spoken.
I mean, that you took a long trip until you arrived to this piece. How did you start your career? So when did it start? You come from Spain, from the Basque region. You studied in France. Could you please tell us a few words about your musical upbringing?
Yes, sure. Well, I'm Basque. I was born near the in the Spanish side of the Basque country, but near the border, the French border. So the three languages have been really bathing my childhood. And my professors in San Sebastian, my first professors were musicians coming from a deep and committed French tradition. My composition professor, who is a composer very well known in our territory, had met Ravel and Ducasse, and he had studied with Paul Leflemme just before the war in Spain. He already was a very aged man when I went to his class. And my piano professor, who was a great pianist, he had studied with Yves Nat in Paris, where he had got his prize, these kind of things in the conservatoire. So the French tradition was very alive in my environment, in my musical environment. So I couldn't do otherwise than go to Paris as soon as I could, which was when I was 19 years old. I left my hometown and I went to Paris.
And what did it mean? I mean, how would you define the Frenchness in your music? What did it add?
Well, I don't know. I don't really know if my music is something else than my music, or it tries to be music. Is there any Frenchness? Maybe because of the way I was trained, or maybe because of the way my ear was trained when I was younger. And in a more or less unconscious way, it finds, I'm sorry about that, it finds a way to appear in the... Yes, so no, I'm not sure how I could define my Frenchness, but I'm not sure either how I could define my Spanish side. I'm sure I can define my Basque side through the language, because Basque people define themselves through the language, not through the territory or through the lineage or through the family. We define ourselves through the language. When you say in Basque that you are Basque, in fact you are saying that you speak Basque. When you speak Basque, you are Basque, regardless of the territory or the family, or you come from Tokyo or from Zambia or from Chile. If you speak Basque, you're Basque.
And this is the reason why you give Basque titles to your pieces?
Yeah, sure. Also because it's my first language. It was the language of my childhood, and you know that the affects and there's a closeness in the terms when you are a child, way they go through your skin, which is maybe a bit different. Also, there's a secrecy about it, because Basque, of course, is a minority language, which is spoken by barely 1 million people, and
it's even more difficult than Hungarian, isn't it?
that was something we were discussing before. I don't know if it is more difficult than Hungarian. The difficulties are different, but it's a difficult language when you come from an Indo-European tradition or heritage. If you have an Indo-European heritage, of course, learning Basque is very difficult because it's completely in the other sense. Everything is in the other sense.
So your first big success was a piece you composed in 1993, for which you won awards, and this is the piece we are going to listen to, at least a couple of minutes, and it is entitled Hitsaure B. Could you please explain a bit the background for this piece and how you relate to it? Because it was written 30 years ago.
Yes, it was written in the Paleocene or something, yes. Well, yes, it's, to me now it's sort of a strange object. I was asked by the conducting professor in the Paris Conservatoire to write this piano concerto. I was just finishing my studies there, and yes, I had been in Montreal for 1 year just before, and then I came back to Paris, and it was before I left to Rome, to the Spanish Academy. So in that intermission, I wrote this thing in 2 movements. In Basque, Hitsaure B means two prologues, two prefaces. Hitsaure, it's the word that precedes something. And although I think that many of my present worries or concerns were already there at that time, they just found a very different way to sort out through the sound.
Okay, so let us listen now to the beginning of the first movement of Hitsaure B, which means 2 prefaces. How does it feel to listen to your 30 years younger self?
Weird. Also because I'm not sure I'm the only one, but I usually don't really listen to my music at home. I tend to look into the things that are coming and not the things that are past. In Basque, the past is is before us. I mean, it's in front of us and not behind. You see, so the past is something we can see, and the unseen, the things that have not been seen, are the interesting ones, I think. But anyway, yeah, it's also. I was thinking how much sound there is there. If I think about my present music, and I recently had a new piano concerto which was premiered last February, and yeah, of course, things are so different. But time is different also. It was 92, 93, 22, 2023, 30 years later. So many things have happened. I mean, the world is not the same at all. Absolutely not the same at all.
I have the good fortune to host these events organized by the Peter Eötvös Foundation, and I almost always pose a very simple question to every composer who sits here. What is music for you? Can you give your own definition?
I remember that when we were children, I mean, I was born under Franco's dictatorship, and we were taught that music is the art of combining sounds in an agreeable, in a pleasant way for the ear. And somehow, I still think the same. Somehow, I mean, it's not such a wrong thing to say. I mean, we call music so many things today, so many phenomena which are brought through the sound. We call music what we do, but we call music also the sound you can hear in a parking lot or in a lift. We call music the things that accompany us every day. We call music sounds recorded on the street or in the nature. We call music installations. So music is a very vague concept finally. It's a very large and vague concept. And then each one of us, I think, tries to find its own inner sound maybe, or the way we think about the sound or the way we feel about the sound. Many people think of the sound in a very visual way. It's not my case. I mean, I'm very bad for everything visual. To me, music is mainly about the sound. How much sound and how to make the sound, how to bring the sound to life. And also, what's the relationship between the people who make this sound exist? It's very important also to me. Sound is not made only because there are instruments, but because there are people playing instruments.
Today, in the morning, I was at home with my little son who is 8 because he's a bit sick. And I prepared for this talk and I listened to the piano concerto we just heard. And I told him, listen, because this music, which sounds really dense, in this music, everything is notated. And he just started to study piano and he was shocked. He said, everything is notated? So, and I said, yes, composers notate their music. And then his question was, and I would like you to ask, and I will forward the answer to him. So, can I be a composer if I don't notate anything?
Yes, of course. Of course, but that's not, maybe that's my French heritage, this obsession about écriture, how to write, the precision of the writing methods and how to give an accurate information to the musicians, to the players. Maybe that's a French thing, but of course, I mean, being a musician, being a composer. Anyway, we are composers, but we are so many other things at the same time. Even when we play with the sound, we make. I mean, I'm talking about music right now. Am I not a composer because I'm talking about music? I mean, this is me being a composer also, but I'm not actually writing any music or making any music by itself. I'm just trying to answer your questions, and trying to understand myself, to explain what I do. And I'm a composer through that. So being a composer is much more than just notating things to me.
And what is your method? Because in one of your CD booklets, I found a beautiful sketch for a piece called House Score. And this is a sketch with text, not with notes. So do you start composing with writing down ideas? You might know about, there's a very famous interview made by a great Hungarian writer, Dezső Kosztolány, with Béla Bartók, and he asked, where do you compose? At the piano or at your desk? And he said, in between.
Yes, sure. There are composers that compose at the piano. There are composers that are great pianists that don't compose at the piano. They compose on the desks, and the in-betweens. Am I in between? I'm not sure. I compose on my desk, mainly. I compose on my desk. I play my piano. I love my piano. I adore my piano. I mean, I'm in love with my piano. But I compose on my desk. And I'm very... it takes a long time to me to define things in my mind. So I don't necessarily note it or take many notes or many sketches until the thing is almost ready to be put down on the paper. Also, I have to say that this is because I didn't want any sketch on the libretto, but they asked me for, so I try to choose the less exposed ones.
Okay. Could you please tell us a bit of an explanation for House Score, which is written for a cello octet and orchestra? It's a quite original sound.
Well, yes, of course. I mean, I had already written several pieces with 8 cellos, and this was asked by this cello octet, and I love the idea. I love the idea. So, in fact, the orchestra is not completely the usual one because I avoided the cello section, and I avoided also the viola. So, violins and double basses, and then there are the 8 cellos just around the conductor. And it was a period where I was really, I don't know, in search of something or just in need of silence. So Auskor in Basque means fragile, but it's not fragile. Auskor is the matter which has in itself the possibility of becoming dust. Because aucha is the dust, and kor is a suffix which indicates that something has the possibility of becoming something. And the idea somehow was, how can I mirror the orchestra? How can I play with these mirage, these illusions of the sound, and how can I try to make the sound escape its usual expected sound, its usual,
Yeah, and compared to the previous piece, where you have these very forceful, even aggressive sounds, it's very fragile. So even if you don't tell us, it sounds very fragile.
Also, formally speaking, it has nothing to do. I mean, the piano concerto itself is somehow very conventional in some of its way of proposing the time, and not here. And the only moment there are two places, but one of them is a D chord, which is almost non-recognizable, And the only moment which is really conventional for the cellos is at the very end, where you can finally listen to the cello sound, the plain cello sound.
Okay, so let us listen to an excerpt from this piece. The music you write and the tradition you come from is full of abstract sounds. What do you think about the role of the composer in the society?
That's a tough one.
I'm really sorry.
Do we have a role? We have a role, yes, we have a role, and maybe also a duty towards our communities and our neighbors and humanity in a sense. You see, sometimes I feel very selfish because of what we do, because even if composing is not easy, it's not an easy task. It's to me, it's a hard one. It's not a pleasure. It's an effort, and it's painful also, and it can be exhausting. But it's very selfish. It's something one does with himself at home. And does it change the world? It doesn't bring any new technology. It doesn't bring any new ideas in order for us to try to build a better world, if that's possible. By now, the world is. So, but maybe still artists or creators, thinkers, poets can propose things, objects, or that enlighten something, or are able to make some individual discover something unexpected in himself or herself or themselves, to better understand why or how we are occupying the space we occupy in the world. So what's our function? I'm not sure, but do we have to have a function anyway? I mean, do we have to work? Is it really a moral imposition to work? I mean,
I'm a musicologist, don't ask me. But I mean, when I went through your catalog, I found some pieces which have a really strong message, like social message even, and one of these pieces is called Eine Ehrenpflicht, which is using two texts by Rosa Luxemburg. Could you please explain? I mean, I was really happy to discover this piece, and I was a bit surprised. So how and why did you compose this piece?
Tra virgolette, the engaged text is not something unusual to me. There are several things. It's a very large question, so and a complex one. So I try to be short, also because it's a very slippery territory. But I already had written a diptych with Edmond Jabez's text, and Edmond Jabez was also someone very committed and very engaged through maybe very abstract poetry, but which is very, very explanatory of his views of the world, of how the world can be seen when we go through oppression or slavery. And this proximity with some kind of ideology is not new to me. I mean, I grew up where I grew up, and some things still remain very present and very close to me because I grew up in a country under a dictatorship, as some of you maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
It's always.
I was born in the communism.
Slippery territories always. So, in any case, my country was very violent when I was a child, and friends were killed by the terrorism. Friends were killed by the police. Family members were tortured. So, even if it's in the past, it's something that has made us, and it has made me. It's there. And I've always had, maybe because of my mother, kind of a fascination about Rosa Luxemburg, because her life and her action were so extreme and so meaningful also, because she was Jewish, she was a woman in that time, and she didn't cease fighting, even in the worst conditions. So she was extreme, but some of her texts remain very, very, I would say, modern. I mean, the world she describes in some of her texts is the one we are going through today, I think, in many senses. But yeah.
Yeah,
it's deeply territory.
But the piece is also very interesting musically because it is using a vocal group, but in a very original way. They are sometimes singing, they are sometimes talking, they are sometimes using very strange sounds coming out of their throats. What was the intention behind this choice?
Well, because to me, it's something which is clear is that in this context of composing the sound, if you are searching for the signification, for the meaning of the text, you just read the text. What Rosa Luxemburg says in her text, or what Edmond Jabez, or the people, I mean Miguel Hernández, Juan Guitisolo, what they say through their texts. If I take the text in order to make some music. What my idea is to hyperbolize this side of the poetry, which is the sounding one. Poetry is also about music, so the idea is to hyperbolize the music of the poetry, and the text is a matter. How is it pronounced? What are the sound qualities of the text? And then they can or cannot, I don't know, but in my way of thinking, at least the goal is to refer to the text as a matter to making the sound.
Okay, let us listen now to the very end of the piece. The text is about poverty and how people fall out of society because of being poor. If one goes through your catalogue, they found mostly instrumental music, but you composed quite a few vocal pieces. If we look at the history of music, we can say that some composers are more instrumental, let's say Beethoven, even if he composed an opera and songs and oratorios, he's considered an instrumental composer, and even if Schubert composed a lot of symphonies and sonatas, he's considered a vocal composer. So how do you think of yourself? Are you more an instrumental composer who sometimes writes vocal music, or vice versa? Or is it a bad question?
I'm a lost soul. I don't think of myself in this kind of categories at all. Projects come, sometimes they come because one dreams of them. Sometimes they come because friends ask for them. Those are the most beautiful ones, very frequently, because working with friends is always a privilege. I mean, it's a way to maximize the empathy, maybe, I don't know, but yes. So I don't think of myself in this kind of cases or drawers. Something is very clear to me now that I am 55. It's that I haven't worked with electronics. And I did work with electronics when I was younger, because of course I went through the electroacoustic class in the conservatoire, and then I did, of course, my IRCAM as everyone else. Sorry?
IRCAM labor.
Yes. and sometimes I have to say that sometimes I missed it. I mean, sometimes it's happened to me to think that I might need those means, those tools also. But then things happen in certain ways that we don't necessarily control, and they go. I mean, life is stronger than we are.
Okay, then I pose the question in another way. What is your relationship to a text, if you set a text to music? So is it a burden or is it an opportunity compared to a piece where there is no text and your mind is free to fly?
Well, it's very different, of course. It's very different, and it is not. I mean, if I think of this piece, the Eine Ehrenpflicht, in fact, I thought of the text as I could think about an oboe or a trombone or a violin. I mean, it's about matter. It's about people. It's about people making sound. So one could have a cello like before and just let the left hand run on the board and the right hand try to find the pressure of the bow on the strings to make the strings speak. And when there's a text, also we can think of the phonatory system and all the mechanisms we have here, and that's the way I think also, because I love linguistics. I studied linguistics when I was younger, and of course I'm fascinated by languages because and even if I'm not necessarily able to produce Hungarian vowels, we can understand how things happen in the mouth. And making a taxonomy and elaborating systems that can explain or can give the musicians the possibility of producing the very specific sounds is also an instrumental way of composing, maybe, I think. I'm not sure if...
Yes. For me, it was a full answer. What do you think about opera?
What do I think about opera? And do I have to speak about that with Peter here? It's complicated. Opera is...
There's a wonderful book Peter wrote with Pedro Amaral about his opera, so everyone can read it, but...
Yeah, I recently got it. I have to read it. Yeah. Opera... I love opera. I love opera. But once again, the same way we call music many very different sound productions, I think opera nowadays, it's a very open term. It's an open concept maybe. And sometimes we think of opera in a continuity of what happened in the 19th century, not necessarily with the 18th century. Some people do. Gérard Pesson, for instance, in his operas, he thinks more of the 18th century than of the 19th century. But then you have these TV operas. The American composer, he died a few years ago, who did this huge series of TV production, which he called operas. Yes, Robert Ashley. Ashley, is that it? No? I'm sorry because I'm bad with it. It's absolutely fascinating. I mean, many people offer today objects that are related to text or to narrativity or to theater or to the presence of the musicians on the scene, on the stage, that they call opera, and it's something else. It's something very different, but we call them operas. So, what do you think about opera? Opera, the advantage of the opera is that it's a very open field today. can be many, many different things. Also because you have technology and the visuals and the staging have changed. And at the same time, it's something old. And old things are always fascinating to me because they are the obsolescence. It's time going through us and making or producing meaningful experiences.
The composition in your catalog that is closest to an opera, maybe I'm wrong, but this is how I saw, is a piece entitled Ravel. I'm not sure about its genre. Is it a song cycle or an opera or a scene, or could you please explain? And then we are going to listen to a short scene in it.
But you are right not being sure about it, because it's nothing, it's nothing of it. I mean, in fact, it's a project of a project. I've had a project on Ravel's last years through Jean Schnoz's book. Jean Schnoz wrote a book telling about Ravel's last 10 years, which were very painful because he had, it wasn't an Alzheimer, but it was something similar. And this issue where one individual is imprisoned with no way to find a liberatory path, when one is isolated and is incapable or not able anymore to recognize its own words or the words of the other people or his or her own music, it's a tragedy. And what was appealing to me, in a certain sense, was this capsule, this prison of the mind, this isolation. And Ravel was, to me, a paradigm for that. So I had this idea, and it had a chance to exist, and then life has these things. My father, anyway, so personal problems did that I couldn't go through the project, and then a few years later, someone asked me for some excerpt of this project. So I wrote fragments, which are kind of a cantata of the opera. They don't go in the order they should go in the opera. And the opera then went down again, and it didn't exist. And now it might exist in 2025, maybe. So we'll see. But I think I won't use any of this music because it's too old now.
Okay, still let us listen to a short excerpt from this piece.
Bon, d'accord, c'est bon. Corrigez le tempo.
You said that Ravel's story was a very intriguing one for you, but what is your relationship to Ravel as a composer, and to put it in a broader context to the classical tradition?
It's a very close one. There's so many things. First one, maybe Ravel was Basque. He was a Basque-speaking person. His presence is very special in my territory. Also, for many years, I've had a friend of my family offered me 400 letters by Ravel, and they've been there with me for almost 40 years now. So when I'm writing music at my desk, I know that Ravel is there. Also, something about the French piano playing that came through my composition professor who had met Ravel. And then, of course, there's the music. And the music, there are at least two things in Ravel's music that are very essential to me. The first one, of course, is the one we all know. It's about the craft. The craft, which is very contradictory in his case, and it's fascinating because of that. And the other one is the tenderness and his relationship to childhood. This absolute melancholy of the childhood, which is very moving to me, and which goes through all his work from the string quartet, which is not the first work, but let's say it's the first really meaningful work, to the piano concertos. Also, in Ravel's music, it's very awkward the way sometimes musicologists work, because the presence of the Basque folk music is very strong, and it's been completely hidden by the French musicology. We talk about the jazz influences, and of course there are the chansons madécas and the mélodies grecques,
the harmonies and the orchestration.
Yes, but then the rhythms from the very beginning, from the string quartet to the left-hand concerto, you can't find this. And in the piano concerto, you can't find cradle songs from the French Basque Country that are infiltrated there in the cadences and the melodic lines. It's something irrigating Ravel's music through his whole life. And of course, I feel that very close to me.
And if we put this question into a broader context, so how do you think about the relationship between innovation and tradition? So, for example, we could hear, and if we could even see with the first cello piece, that you love, or you seem to love, to use strange playing styles or techniques or sounds that are not seem to be natural on an instrument. But on the other hand, as this little summary of Ravel's oeuvre tell us, you are deeply dwelled into the tradition.
Well, I think I'm very traditional, almost conventional in my way of composing and thinking of music. When
You write notes on the paper.
I write notes with a pencil.
I will tell it to my son.
When we see what young people do today, it's so fascinating. It's so different, so diverse, and the ramifications through the technology are absolutely amazing and fascinating. So yes, when I meet young composers, all the composers, young composers, I mean, yeah, even composers of my age, that work in this kind of many very prolific technology tools to make music today. It's I feel very conventional also because the way I think of harmony is very conventional. I think of chords, I think of triads, I think of like in the cello piece, I think of a B minor chord and a G major chord, and that's the way the thing is made of.
Okay, so the last piece we are going to listen will be played again live. Could you please give us a short introduction? Lur-Itzalak.
Yeah, Lur-Itzalak. Well, Lur-Itzalak in Basque means shadows of ground. Maybe something like that. I'm not sure how I can translate it. I can put it in English, but yeah, shadows of ground. I mean, the shadows are made of ground. That's the idea. It's part of a cycle which didn't find its end. There was a Su-Itzalak for 8 cellos, and then there was also Itzalak. So Su-Itzalak was shadows of fire, and then shadows of wind. What can I say about that? Not much thing.
Okay, we should just listen to it.
I've talked too much already. No?
Okay, so we finish here, and the only thing I have to tell you that after this 1-week course on next Saturday, on the 6th of October, there will be a concert at the BMC Concert Hall. Friday, yes, the 6th, it was right. Yeah, the 6th of October, Friday. Spotlight on Ramon Lazkano. And now the last piece today, played by Oszkár Varga and Tamás Zétényi.
Yeah.